Put yourself in position to win big on Kentucky Derby Day with the power of daily racing form. Visit shop.drf.com and get past performances, expert picks, betting strategies, clock reports, and more. Again, that's shop.drf.com. Hi, everybody. Dan Illman, Mike Beer. It's opening week at Belmont Park, and Friday has two graded stakes on tap, including race number 4. Mile and 3/8 on the inner turf. It's the Sheepshead Bay for fillies and mares. We'll get to that field in a minute, but first, please subscribe to the Daily Racing Form YouTube channel for the latest DRF videos this Kentucky Derby week. Here's the field for the Sheepshead Bay. We've got 3 in here trained by Chad Brown. We've got 2 in here trained by Christophe Clement. And while we usually don't like short fields, Mike, I think you could make a case for every horse in this race.
Yeah, no, I'll agree with that, Dan. Obviously, you'd like to see, a few more horses, a little more diversity, perhaps among the barns represented. But we do have, I think you could make a legit case for any one of these 5.
It'll be a very interesting pace scenario in this short field. We throw up the Timeform US pace projector, not surprisingly, gray bar, no speed. A little surprisingly, Higher Truth expected to get to the front with My Lady, who came from last time out in the very one at Gulfstream. Isn't this the sort of pace scenario that Virginia Joy makes hay with, Mike? I mean, she did it last year at Saratoga when upsetting Warlike Goddess. Do you think she's going?
I mean, I'm sure they'll go forward with her, Dan. You're right. She did make the lead in wiring the Flower Bowl last summer on, a super, super slow pace. I don't even think they'll go that slow in here. She also wired the Sheepshead Bay last year, this race, on a really boggy turf course against only 3 others. She'll go forward in here, but I mean, it's hard to argue with Higher Truth being the pace of this race. She's been on the lead several times in the past. She's still pretty lightly raced. I mean, I'm certain they're going to go forward in here.
The top 3 horses on the pace projector all come out of the same race, the very one. And when you play this race on DRF bets, you'll get to access formulator past performances. You get to watch the race replay by clicking on the short comment. Make sure you watch the whole replay. A lot going on in that race. Let's turn into the stretch. My Lady didn't break well. She was last early. She made this giant 4-wide move on the turn from last to first. She's going to make the lead while a couple of her rivals were bottled in behind, especially Higher Power, who's diving to the rail.
Yeah, this is a strong performance. She did have some things go her way, Dan. Not only did she get a clean run in this race that some of the others didn't, she also had a pretty solid pace in front of her. That being said, she made a very eye-catching move around that final turn there to just sweep by that field. And I like the way that she stayed on at the end too, Dan. They were never catching this filly. She was good last year in Germany. I mean, there's a chance that she's one of the better longer distance turf fillies in the country this year.
It looked like Higher Power had a lot of momentum once she got clear in the stretch, but she got to about a length of My Lady, and My Lady seemed to find another gear the last 75 yards or so. I agree, it was a strong performance. Dylan Davis takes the mount. The number 2 is Atomic Blonde. She ran 3rd in her North American debut for Clement. That was the Grade 3 Orchid. She was a Group 3 winner in Italy. She seems like stamina's okay. Did you feel in the Orchid she made a little bit of an early bid to the front? She made the lead just inside the quarter pole, and then she was run down late by Amazing Grace. We'll watch that video later. I thought it was a good enough effort, first time in the country.
I did too. I mean, I didn't love the performance. I don't know if I loved the race overall, Dan, but she certainly ran fine in there. It's fair to wonder whether she maybe moved a little prematurely. It's also at least worth pointing out that she was, on the outside the entire way there while the winner of that race got to save some ground. She was 3-4 wide around the track, still made a run, still made the lead in the stretch, just got a little bit tired.
She does have some tactical speed as well, so maybe she can take advantage of the lack of pace in this race and get forward, as should the number 3 Virginia Joy. Mike mentioned she wired this race last year over a wet turf course. Then she pulled off the big upset over Warlike Goddess when just allowed to crawl on the lead in the Flower Bowl. Now, she ran 4th in the very one behind My Lady. She was the beaten favorite that day. While My Lady got to the outside, made that brisk move on the turn, Virginia Joy was last on the rail. She got to the outside soon after. She made a pretty strong outside bid and then flattened out. I think she can move forward with a more aggressive early ride.
I agree with all that stuff, Dan. I mean, again, she could make the lead in here, but she doesn't have to. She's run very well on the lead. She's run very well from off the pace. She did take a little bit of a shuffle on that final turn into the very one, and then did make a pretty strong run through the stretch, I thought. I mean, I don't know. We'll see what kind of price she winds up going off at. Again, she could go, they could do it either way with her as far as the trip she pulls is concerned, but she's clearly run several races that would make her really tough in here.
My Lady and Virginia Joy already have their big wins. Maybe it's Higher Truth's turn for Chad, who might have the most upside potential of any of the Brown trained runners and has also shown a good amount of ability. Kept nice company last year as a 3-year-old. In the very one, she tried to split horses on the backstretch the final time, kind of got steadied at the 3/8, was in behind horses turning into the stretch. We saw her dive inside. She finished with interest. She's real solid, and if the Timeform US pace projector is right, she'll be real tough.
Yeah, I agree. I mean, certainly easy enough to make a big excuse for her race last time. Not only was it a really long layoff, Dan, you have to remember she only managed one start last year as a 4-year-old, and she just absolutely dominated an allowance field and then missed the rest of the year. She came back last time, got really unlucky. I mean, I'm not suggesting that she was necessarily going to win because I thought My Lady ran a pretty big race there, but you could argue that she was going to win that race. And if she's on the lead in here, she could be really, really hard to run down.
Amazing Grace was a group stakes winner in Germany where stamina is at a premium, and she wore him down in the Orchid, the race we talked about before, with the other Clement train runner, Atomic Blonde. Let's turn into the stretch. Atomic Blonde had the lead. Amazing Grace saved ground, was really conservatively ridden on the backstretch by Rosario, just got to the outside at the quarter pole, is going to find a seam and is going to kick on home. You see Amazing Grace splitting horses just to the inside of her stablemate, the gray Atomic Blonde.
Yeah, she stays on pretty nice here. This is a good finish, and I feel like the horse that she's getting by their late personal best, that horse isn't that bad. So I like the run that this mare made, Dan. I kind of feel like, I don't know if you agree with this or not, that 1.5 miles kind of felt like it really worked for her last time. You're going to have to drop her back a furlong here, so maybe that could be the deciding factor here. Going a little shorter might not work quite as well for her, but she's pretty hard to knock. She was good over there. She was good in her first start over here.
And we'll see how the pace plays out. If it's a slow pace, it's a bunched up field. It comes down to who kicks the hardest in the stretch. She does have a strong kick. Let's take a look at our top selections for the kickoff leg of the $1 pick six at Belmont on Friday. We're both going to go back to My Lady. That move she made on the third turn last time out was just so impressive. It was basically a last to first move in 5 or 6 strides, and she was able to sustain that bid. I think that bodes well for her on Friday.
Yeah, I agree with that, Dan. I think it's also at least worth pointing out she's still pretty lightly raced. I mean, we may not have seen her best race yet, and I don't feel like I can say that about many of the others in here. I'm going to take her on top. I put Higher Truth second. I did think she ran really well off the layoff last time.
She certainly had trouble last time out. She showed ability earlier in her career as a 3-year-old, and maybe now at 5, she's starting to get back to her form. 1435 for Mike, 1542 for me. The grade 2 Sheepshead Bay at Belmont on Friday. Good luck.